Welcome back to our series, Diverting Waste Using Natural Dye. I'm Leilah, Recology San Francisco's current student artist in resident.
And I'm Cailyn. Today we're going to be teaching you how to extract natural dyes from common food scraps.
Before we get started, we wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that we're on Ohlone land. We encourage all of you to research the land that you are occupying, the people it belongs to, and their histories. We also wanted to thank Recology for sponsoring us in the creation of this series. And if you haven't checked out our first video, look for DIY Vertical Dye Garden.
So with the holidays right around the corner, we thought it would be a great time to think about our food waste, and how to reduce our carbon footprint during these times.
We also hope that this can be a fun activity to do with your family while you're all together. We also wanted to take a brief moment to talk about food waste.
So around the holidays, we tend to generate a lot of excess waste. Globally, about 30% of all food is tossed into the landfill and contributes to about 6% of greenhouse gas emissions.
We hope that this will encourage you to think about your waste and how you can use it to its fullest potential. For this video, we will only be using inedible or used food scraps.
So with all that in mind, let's get started.
Today we will be working with avocado pits and skins, beet peels, onion skins, red cabbage, and used tea and coffee grounds. The avocado and beet will produce a pink dye, onion skins will make a reddish or yellow color, and the tea and coffee grounds will produce a natural earthy stain.
You will need a large stainless steel pot, stainless steel tongs, water, salt, the fabric you would like to dye, and your scraps. We used Glauber salt for our dye, but table salt works just as well.
When you're using natural dyes, you want to make sure that you're using a natural fiber as well. You can use linen or silk or wool, but today we decided to use cotton like this.
So in natural dyeing, it's also very common to use what's called a mordant. A mordant is a substance that binds the natural dye to the fabric.
We won't be using mordants today because we wanted all our materials to be easily available in your kitchen, but you can find mordants in your surroundings. If you live near oak trees, you can grind up oak galls and turn it into a paste with water and treat your fabric with it before dyeing with them. There are also a lot of other common mordants online like alum, but we encourage you to really research the process of mining because the mining process for alum and a lot of other mordants is really destructive for the environment. So if you can make your own, we encourage you to do that.
Yeah, and just another thing, natural dyeing is very much an experiment, like a science experiment, so nothing's going to come out the same twice. Like you might have a different pH in your water where you live, so there's just a lot of variables going into play there. So to begin the process of natural dyeing, you're going to want to take a pot, add your scraps into the pot, fill it up with water, bring your water to a boil, and then you're going to want to add 1 to 2 tablespoons of salt. And then you're just going to let that boil. And
for
then
like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, like once you like the color of it, you can stop boiling it, bring it down to a simmer, and add your fabric while it's still wet.
Yeah, exactly. So it's important to add your fabric when the fabric is still wet because it'll just make it easier for the dye to attach to the fibers.
Go in with your used tea leaves. My family drinks a lot of tea, so this is all used black tea leaves. And then your water. And of course your salt. You know, and one thing you want to keep in mind when you're making this stuff and you're saving your scraps is as much as possible you want to make sure that they're not molding. So either keep them in the fridge or lay them out to dry so that you can use them again and again. All right, add your damp fabric. I was a little worried that the beets weren't sticking to the fabric as well, so I'm just going to add a little bit of vinegar and see if that helps the dye be steadfast. I think the vinegar helped a lot. As you can see, the color is a lot more seeped into the fibers and is a lot deeper. So I would definitely recommend adding vinegar if you decide to do beet peels. Once you're satisfied with the color of your dye, you can take out the avocado pits and skins and set them aside. First step in turning the flowers from your vertical dye garden into dye is to harvest them and lay them out to dry. You can either dry the entire flower head or just the petals. Leave them in the sun or a bright, dry place till they are fully dried. Ensure that they do not mold or rot. For these dyes, it is best to treat your fabric with a mordant or buy pre-treated fabric at the store. It is usually called ready-to-dye fabric. The marigold will produce a yellow color. Add your marigold to cold water and heat gradually. Simmer for 15 to 20 minutes or until you are pleased with your color. Strain out the marigold and add your fabric. Keep at just under boiling temperature for 20 to 30 minutes. Strain, rinse, and dry your fabric. Repeat the same process for your coreopsis, stirring it frequently till you get your pale yellow color. To dye with black iris, soak your iris in lukewarm water in the sun till the water becomes deep purple and very concentrated. Add your fabric and leave as long as possible. You can achieve many colors with iris. If you add alum, it will turn blue. If you add baking soda, it will turn a light seafoam green. You can calculate how much plant matter you need to dye a certain amount of fabric. Multiply the weight of fabric you are dyeing by 25% to get the weight of plant matter you will need.
So once you've boiled your fabric until it's reached the desired shade, you're going to want to take it out with some tongs, rinse it underneath the sink, and hang it out in the line on a line to dry or in the sun.
And if you need help boiling any of your water, make sure you can grab a parent or ask somebody for help just to make sure that you're being safe.
Yeah, and if you want a deeper color but you don't want to leave the stove on all day, you can strain out the plant material and put your dye bath in jars like we've done here.
Yeah, and you can reuse them once they've gone into the jars. You can just throw them in a pot, reboil them, and add new fabric, and you can keep reusing them as long as you have them in a sealed jar like this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important to get the plant matter all the way out of the dye bath so your dye bath doesn't get moldy or contaminated.
Yeah, and when you're doing dye projects like this, you always want to make sure that you're using a designated pot. As much as possible, like, don't try and cross-contaminate between the pot that you're using for dyeing and the pot that you use for cooking, just because we're making really concentrated versions of these dyes, and even though they're natural materials, they can irritate your skin, or you might have an allergic reaction to something that you don't normally.
Definitely. And we've also heard that some people like to freeze their scraps too, so if you're collecting onion skins for the week, you can either, you can put them out in the sun to dry, or you can put them in the fridge or in the freezer. So it really just depends what you're up to.
Yeah, I tend to dry mine out. I dried out the tea leaves that I already used, and of course, like the avocado pits and skins. You just want to make sure any material that's going to rot really quickly isn't on your scraps when you're boiling them. These are all the colors that we got from our kitchen scrap dye projects. I used black tea, and I actually really like kind of the beige colors that we got from tea and coffee. I really love the yellow onion skin, and having all these ranges of pink are really great if you're working on a particular project or a quilt or something. But I have to say, my favorite is definitely the purple cabbage.
Thank
Yeah.
you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. If you have any questions, just type in the comment box below and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Yeah, and make sure to check out Recology San Francisco's webpage for more educational material, but also to find our next upcoming video, which is about how to mend your own clothing to divert them from the landfill.
Okay. Thanks,
Cool.
everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.